Hey, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. I am an evolutionary astrologer and also a channel and energy worker and a medium. And this video, I thought about calling it A New Root, focusing on the root chakra teaching for you and trying to give you some insight into why it's so important to work with the lower chakras and heal them before we move up into the spiritual, intuitive chakras. Most people are taught that moving up into that blissful feeling is what spirituality is. And in my version of teaching as a spiritual teacher, I don't often think like that, but sometimes I mention it in videos. It is in learning to more consciously operate yourself, more intentionally operate your consciousness, is how the Ascended Master that I work with talks about it. And that being is Hermes, who's present in all Earth cultures. Also, I often refer to the being as Jehudi, and that's how he/it refers to him or itself. But also Saint Germain, Thoth or Toth, Merlin. And that being hangs around to help us learn. Sorry, I'm getting used to this new phone, so I keep looking up here, but the camera's there. So please just forgive me. I just got a new phone a few days ago. So that being teaches that each of us is responsible for becoming more consciously aware of how to operate ourselves, meaning so our hearts don't go out to other people and we lose energy, so that we don't live with guilt and shame locked up within our fields and therefore leak energy or disrespect ourselves. To create self-respect through self-respecting choices is to become empowered in this version of the teaching. So I spend a lot of time teaching people how to go into the lower chakras where the density is there. The vibration is more dense. It is not pleasant to be there quite often, because once we go there, let's say in the root chakra, as we're going to talk about today, to, assert I'm safe, I'm welcome here, it's safe to be in my body, I belong on this planet, these kinds of broad things, and I'll talk about some other things too. But as we go in and assert that, we will meet parts of us who kind of emotional residues, say it that way, or parts of us who kind of stuck in that part of our field, who disagree and who have been hurt and don't feel like they belong, who don't feel it's safe to be in the body. So this teaching stirs us, encourages us, calls us, pushes us to go into the root, and then second and third also. So to build a solid foundation upon which the upper four chakras can relax, open organically. But the guiding principle is always build sanity and stamina and strength and confidence from the ground up, from the root chakra up. So this idea of a new root, then I was thinking an original root would be a better title, going back to the original root. And this is really what I want to talk about today. All this is reflected in the chakra course that I've created, that you can see on the Healing Courses page at tdjacobs.com, which is everything that I know and have learned from the Ascended Master Jehudi, Hermes, Thoth et al., about how to live with this and how to work with this. And if you get involved in healing courses of any kind with me, you'll hear about grounding. You'll hear about working with the root and going back to the history. So this was stirred because I had a conversation with a client, a week or 10 days ago, that is not uncommon among conversations with clients, where an adult person who has some unresolved issues with family of origin has created a support structure and community now. So if I were to say to such a person, and there are many of us, many people, let's say that I say, oh, this thing in your chart, indicates that there's stuff going on at home that you might be trying to get away from, but it's really important to learn to transition into seeing it as support, blah, 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 kind of transitioning into spiritual empowerment, even though we've been hurt or we didn't belong or were criticized or something like that. And the person says, well, actually, I've created community today that's healthy. So yeah, you're right. Something was not good there. And I'm far away from that. Here I am in my 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is. And I'm far away from that. So that's not an issue anymore. And here's the teaching. It is an issue. So what you've essentially done in that position, and I say this is many, many people, so I'm not picking on that person or anybody else, but it stirred me when I heard that person talk about it. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I hear this a lot from people. So I wanted to do this video. But the original imprint of how welcome you are on this planet and in your body comes from family when you're born. The ideas and attitudes, the emotions and energies swirling around in their heads and hearts and fields, what they've been through, what they believe the world is about, how they treat each other and themselves. All of that is the original imprint on your root chakra. So you can go through later and say, well, that if there was a reason you had to disconnect or you didn't belong there or needed to go away or something, you can go back later and establish a kind of parallel, but it will never be the same. And what I want to say is you shouldn't be willing to settle for version 2.0 because 1.0 is painful. So as I say this, some people hearing this will say, but I was, treated in a way that was so terrible, I can't belong there. And I say, I understand. I accept that. Or I'm so different than they were. Or I was hurt in these particular ways, or I was abused very specifically by family members, or something, right? Or people who were like family, friends who were brought in, or people in our community. Like I think about somebody like in a clergy position or a teacher who might have hurt a young person. That kind of is still root chakra, community connection, even if it's not a literal family member. And so I want to broaden this out a little bit so you really see what we're getting at. Or organizations that I was part of as a child or that my family was part of, right? So like a young child who knows, she's not like other girls because she likes girls, growing up in a Catholic or some other kind of strict religious home where maybe the institution says this is wrong. So how do I know that I'm okay because I'm different? So all those kinds of things come into play. Abuse, being different, anything like that. You can strengthen this parallel version. But this is what I want to get at. If there is charge regarding the original imprint, the family of origin, the groups and social connections, if there is a charge there, if when you think of it, part of you slams the door because it's painful or because anger comes up, or if you are afraid to feel the pain, fear, or anger, or residues of trauma or whatever, that's the red flag for this needs to be addressed. So most people will say, oh, I don't need to address that. That's their brain. That's their linear logical mind saying, I don't need to do that because I don't deserve to have to feel that way. So I say, I accept that. But the reason that you experienced what you did is that the souls involved gave you an idea of what it means to be human that you are welcome to reject. But if you hold yourself away from that history and shut the door and slam the door and put your fingers in your, I don't know what I'm doing. If you do that, then there is a hole or a gap, a wedge missing from your root chakra. So, and this is really the point of why I want to do this video. Our goal in this teaching about the energy system and the soul and from Hermes, Jehudi, Thoth et al., the goal is to learn to interpret everything we've experienced on two levels. And this creates a healing. Level one is always the facts of what has happened, how that affected me, why I believe it happened, what it made me think about myself later, how it may affect me still years later. That's level one. And if you work with me in readings and coaching, and even like Energy is Money is Energy courses, we talk about this two levels. Or any intensive regarding any topic, family healing, Pluto, Chiron, anything. when we do in-person events again later in the future. Level 1 is acknowledging the facts of what's happened. Level 2 is then, after acknowledging and honoring that you've been shaped by real-world experiences, and that your foibles and malfunctions and tics and quirks are actually, your resistance and anger and pain, they're actually shaped by real-world experience. The level 2 is let's zoom out and endeavor to understand why a soul would create that experience and co-create that experience with other souls. So in every case, we have, in any issue that you or anybody else might have about the root chakra pain from the past, there is level 1. I'm hurt. I'm angry. No one's ever going to treat me that way again, that kind of thing, right? Those feelings and emotions. And it's really critical to honor them, listen to them, pay attention, narrate, give voice to, write down, journal, talk to a counselor, whatever. Then level 2, and why would this be important for my soul's journey? Because the logic in this system about the soul's logic that we use in my work is, if it happened to you, it's not an accident. If it made a great impact, it's part of your soul's plan for learning how to be human. And nothing is ever about deserving. So think about how I said some people might slam the door on those memories or the feelings that come with those memories, because I didn't deserve to be treated that way then. I'm not going to be treated that way now. I'm not going to I shouldn't have to feel that way. I don't deserve that. I never deserved it. And I said earlier, I accept that, because nothing that we experience comes to us because we deserve it. There's no reward and punishment system when it comes to karma. Every soul is here as a human to, while human, learn how to go from fear into love, or transform in the face of pain of all kinds, pain, guilt, anger, shame, whatever, into all the list of terrible things, into acceptance, compassion, love. That's where true spiritual empowerment comes from in this model, in this teaching that I offer about the chakras and the human journey. So, how can we take this set of negatives and turn a corner? And it involves learning to understand and accept, and this is quite often why I use evolutionary astrology, to understand the path of learning to go from fear, pain, etc., into love, compassion, etc., that your particular soul has set out for you. Now, regarding root chakra issues and all the other issues in any chakra, there are certain universal principles, and that's why I've created that chakra course that I want you to work with. But when you know, beyond that, and I recommend the chakra course for everybody who has any issue that hurts them from the past, any memory part of them tries to shut down, any self-doubt, any self-judgment because of how things have gone or how people have or haven't treated you. What choices you've made, what choices others made, like whatever. I recommend everybody get the chakra course, and I'll put the link in the description. It comes in 2 parts. You can get part 1, which is chakras 1 through 3, plus an intro, and that's where everybody should begin. Like nobody ever should get part 2 before part 1. You can get part 1 alone, and then if you want, you can later get part 2, or you can get the whole thing together, but start with part 1. Some people listen through the whole thing and then return, but the bulk of the work is always in the lower chakras. I'll get there in a second. And we don't want to do the bulk of that work because the issues are dense and it's harder to be there. All these old feelings come up. But again, it's really important for healing and empowerment. So, this thing hurt me. It still hurts me. Okay, that's level 1. This is why, and let me honor the voice and give narrative and let me express anger in my counseling session. Okay. Level 2, then, why would it happen? It's part of your path. The generic response is, the generic category for everybody is, it's part of your path to learning how to be put into fear and pain so that you become empowered through choosing compassion, love, and acceptance. So whatever it is was actually put in your path by your soul as a co-creation with other souls. They're in cahoots together in what I call the conspiracy of love between souls to provide you the opportunity to learn to grow into being loving, which is true empowerment. Empowerment isn't money and resources and influence and letters after your name and if people call you sir or ma'am. True empowerment, like whatever seems to confer that, can go. True spiritual empowerment is about how you operate yourself as a conscious being with self-respect and self-love. So, an unavailable parent, an abusive parent, an emotionally ill parent, an addicted parent. So just a handful of the things that can create scenarios in the home, in the home when a person is young, where there's a setup for not getting needs met and perhaps being hurt or ignored, or what's the word? Ignored. I can't remember the other word for it. Not cared for, not tended to, neglected, or actual outright abuse or something. And again, so let's start with the principle. It's not that you deserve it, or it's not that the person deserves it, but it serves the learning journey. So eventually, whatever the thing is, it's incumbent upon us as individuals, and this is a hard path. But again, this is the only place that actual spiritual empowerment comes from. To confront these particular pains and the sense of deserving and self-worth issues and these residues, and to learn to acknowledge level 1 and take care of that part of the self. Then level 2, accept the higher truth that it actually serves me. It couldn't happen to you if your soul wasn't open or didn't expect it or didn't ask to be co-participate in it. Again, never because you deserve it. There's no judgment from your soul, and the pain you've experienced is fodder for your journey to learn to become empowered through you generating forgiveness, compassion, acceptance. And I'll tell you, it's very prevalent that we have a part of us who can't, for any person potentially could have, a part of us that just can't get over that one thing. Or that one category of things that is a very long list of things. Like how that parent treated me or what happened here or something like that. It's really common to have that one thing we just can't let go of. And that's that part of us shaped by that is holding on to that as an identity. So when you do level 1 analysis and you air the facts, the perceptions, the beliefs, and you honor those things, you never deny or doubt or second guess or gaslight yourself. Others might have tried to do those things. We never do that. We say, yeah, this is what happened. This is how it affected me. This is why I'm so angry or why I'm so sad. Acknowledging that part of you feels heard, is actively being respected. And then level 2, you can also develop the perspective or develop the part of you who can get centered and grounded and has spiritual wisdom and can grow beyond pains from the past. And you eventually begin to detach from identifying as the part who's expressing in level 1 analysis. This is one thing that it can be so hard. And I think about, even with myself as an example, not to get too personal, but I can think of I don't know, like 2 or 3 things. Let's say 3 things from my childhood that were painful that would make me cut off awareness of my root chakra. That part of me doesn't want to let go of the identity of having been wronged or hurt or neglected or whatever the thing is. But I have to continue listening to those parts and thereby identifying or developing a different reference point for my identity. Meaning, I intellectually understand this teaching. I share it with people all over the world. And part of me still gets stuck. And this is normal. It's okay. And sometimes you might talk to somebody like me and they'll say, okay, here's what you have to do. And here's the New Age spiritual principle. And it takes you 3 years And maybe your friend calls me and it takes her 2 months. And you're like, what is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You just, the depth of the pain and the attachment to it needs more time and attention. So anyway, I'm going to end the video soon, but I just really want you to understand that if you take that thing that's so painful and cut it off and say, those people, maybe they're all dead. Maybe I haven't talked to them in years. Maybe I had to cut myself off from them. I don't even know if they're dead or alive, right? The family of origin, an old community members or former community members. It's your health, your possibility for strength and confidence starting in the root chakra that is to be developed by learning to bring love, compassion, acceptance, generosity of spirit, acceptance, compassion, love, compassion, forgiveness to those lower chakra dense issues that you may have carried for so long. It's easy to think that if we cut ourselves off, we can be free of it, but we can't ever be free of it. We have to go back to the root chakra. Just anecdotally, I've said this other places, you may have heard this, but when I started working with this ascended master, Jehudi Hermes Thoth, Saint Germain Merlin, when I started working with this being, and he/it would teach me about grounding, he would say, well, you got to deepen into, and I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he's like, you got to deepen into the God crap, the religion crap, the mommy and daddy crap. You got to deepen into the family stuff. And I would always say, and he would say, you have to clear out those lower chakras, or at least be in the process of addressing them with interest, understanding, acceptance, compassion. Again, maybe some of them take longer to unwind, but you have to be in process with this in order to really get grounded, which is where confidence, stamina, strength, self-respect begin. So again, in my teachings, I always teach, and as a psychic and intuitive, as a professional, Akash reader, whatever, I don't formally do Akashic Records reading, but that's what I'm doing. When I work with Jehudi and Metatron, who are associated with time and history and records, I do work with the upper chakras for my living, but only once I'm grounded, because otherwise I can be flaky. I can misread you. I can be inappropriate with poor boundaries. I can pick up stuff that isn't for you and think it's for you. When I'm grounded, there's a resonance in my field of my body of what feels true. So even as somebody who does upper chakra work professionally, I always begin in the lower chakras. So get the chakra course so you can have this education. It will transform your life. And everything that frustrates you about patterns in your life, you'll start to see how you vibrate that may contribute or does create it. So the chakra course part 1 and 2, you can buy the first part by itself. Always start with the first chakra course, or the lower 3 chakras. And so I'll just say this, sometimes people will buy the whole thing and they'll say, oh yeah, great, I'll work through this. And they realize they have to spend months on the root. Like they'll listen to all the first 3 and then they're like, wait a minute, I'm not done with the root. And that's normal. And that's why I actually created the course, because I used to teach this stuff in person, but no matter how much time we spent on the root chakra, it was never enough. So even when we moved on as a group to the next chakra the next week, somebody needed more time. And I was like, I got to figure out a way to let people go at their own pace. And that's why this home study course came up. So anyway, check out what I'm up to at tdjacobs.com. You can read about the journey of soul and how to deal with difficult emotions that can lead us to despair on healingsuicide.com. This is especially important now because of the way that in certain countries, including here in the U.S., the pandemic situation has not been managed well. The difficulty and suffering is extended. The unnecessary death is increasing. So from the virus, but also the longer this continues, the more people may feel despair and lose hope. So check out healingsuicide.com as well. Thanks for your time and energy. Take care of yourself. Keep breathing, and be well.